Hello everyone. This video is about a challenge I did for 1 month. It was a 31 days no gaming challenge, and I'm going to tell you about what I learned from the challenge. And so it was from the end of January to the end of February. Actually, it was the 27th of January of this year to the 27th of February. So for a total of 31 days, I did absolutely no gaming. And initially, so what this meant was basically absolutely no gaming. So no video gaming with a console, no gaming on a mobile phone, and no gaming on any other device, be it computer, like with web apps, something like that. So that was the challenge. So why did I do this? Mainly this was a big willpower challenge for myself because my, quote, willpower muscles were getting weak. And I was trying to regain time. And in my opinion, time is the most valuable commodity we have. It's something we can never get back. And in addition, I wanted to train myself to be more self-disciplined and work on goals. And I realized that in January, I was spending epic amounts of time gaming, really many, many hours. Some days more than 3 hours, some days probably more than 5 hours per day, and I should have been doing other things. So it seemed to me I was clearly very addicted, or at least I could have been doing much more productive things. And I noticed there was a few big time wasters in my life, and one of them was video game playing. Okay, so a quick caveat about video games before I talk about the detriments of them. There actually are some benefits to video games, and if you read the book SuperBetter, it talks a lot about some of the benefits. So video games aren't all bad, but this challenge was specifically to get rid of the bad parts of video games because I couldn't play them, so I couldn't get the negative consequences from them. So some things about video games are good, such as they can be calming, they can de-stress, you can interact with friends, so do socializing. And some studies have shown that video games can help make people more creative. So I mentioned the book SuperBetter. Read that book if you want to know more about the benefits of games. But that being said, video games had a lot more disadvantages than advantages for me. So I wanted to try so-called cold turkey, go cold turkey on video games, which means to just completely stop altogether. Okay, so video games sucked up tons of my time, and that's one thing I wanted to mention about this. So just even 5 minutes of play that you expect to do can end up being more than an hour. And some days, I may have planned to spend just a very small amount of time, but I ended up spending more than 4 hours because a lot of games are super addictive. Okay, so one thing I managed to do to avoid temptations were to delete the games altogether off my phone. This basically made it much harder for me to actually play the games, and also the lazy part of me would not have wanted to have actually played the games, would not have wanted to install the games, so it made it a lot harder to give in to the temptation. Okay, one thing I did think about was how I would feel I wanted to think about how I would feel at the end. So video games have given me pleasure in my life for many, many years. But for this challenge, I wanted to think about the pleasure of how it would feel to have accomplished this. Okay, so in many ways, this challenge is about long-term versus short-term pleasure. Video games, by playing them, can give you lots of instant gratification, lots of short-term pleasure, but this pleasure is fleeting. And I felt that this challenge, though it would be a lot harder to get and take a lot longer, the pleasure would probably feel better, and I think it would last longer. Okay, so I did get quite a lot of benefits from this. I accomplished a goal, got more self-respect, and increased my willpower a bit. And there's actually a book I read a while back. It's called The Willpower Instinct. And one important thing about willpower is that actually it's limited. So if you do too many things every day that exhaust your willpower, eventually you'll have no willpower left, and it will be super hard to not give in to temptations such as video games. Okay, so here are some important things to note about video games. So 5 of them that I got from doing this challenge. Okay, 1, video games can be beneficial, but don't spend more than 3 hours per day. Okay, so the book SuperBetter talks about up to 3 hours per day can be beneficial, but actually for me, I think it would be about 30 minutes per day max. Any more than that, and I just end up wasting a lot more time. Okay, 2, video games are very often designed to be addictive. So just like social media can be addictive, video games can be addictive, and they're very often designed specifically to be addictive. They'll hire people who know, for example, psychologists and other such people who know how to make something addictive, and so that can be very bad for you. Okay, 3, don't overstimulate your brain, specifically the pleasure parts of your brain. If you overstimulate, so if you get nonstop pleasure, for example, eventually you will, you can basically, just overload it, and that can really affect your ability to feel pleasure when you should feel, when you really should be able to feel it. Okay, number 4, be aware of the amount of time you spend when gaming. Games can be really super fun, and they can be addictive, and very often you can lose track of time. So as I mentioned, 5 minutes can turn into 1 hour, can turn into several hours. So be cognizant of the time and the amount of time you're spending. 5, okay, so socializing. So video games can be great for socializing. I have friends all around the world, friends in almost every major time zone. But ideally, you should find ways to socialize outside of the digital world, outside of video games. The best way would be physical, face-to-face interaction, and you don't have to only socialize through games. Okay, so as I mentioned, video games can help people be more creative, although I think it's very important to use critical thinking regarding video games. And in addition, for this challenge, one thing I learned, and as a side thing, is that I think self-control regarding video game use is far more important than someone forcing you, is far more useful than someone forcing you not to play games. If someone's forcing you not to play games, but you want to, you're going to basically rebel against that. But if you do it yourself, for yourself, it's easier to own. If you can own the decision, it becomes easier for your mind to deal with it. So I chose to do this by myself. No one forced me. So in some ways, it was easier than if someone had forced me, say, put a gun to my head. Well, maybe, anyway, if someone had forced me to do this, it would be harder, I think, than choosing to do it myself. Okay, who should or shouldn't play games? A lot. Okay, so the only people I think who should be playing lots and lots of games are video game programmers, video game designers, and professional video game players, or other such people who make money from video games. Other than that, I think most people shouldn't spend a lot of time playing games because too much can be a huge waste of time and have many detriments, besides just the loss of time. Okay. In addition, part of the reason that I did this was to try to basically break a bad habit. After I did this challenge, I read a book called The Power of Habit, which is quite fantastic. Though, by trying to get rid of a bad habit, I ended up breaking the so-called golden rule of habit change, which that book talks about. So a habit is mainly composed of three things: a cue, a routine, and a reward. A cue is the thing that starts a habit. The routine is the actual behavior that you do, and the reward is basically what you get by doing the reward, what you do by doing the routine, and your body and mind will crave that reward for you to want to keep doing it over and over. Okay, so one thing I didn't do was to replace my bad habit with a different routine, so I kind of failed there. I ended up basically replacing this video game habit with other time-wasting habits. So I didn't actually gain that much time back. I did gain some time back, definitely, but I should have replaced my bad routine with a better routine. And the golden rule of habit change says to fix a bad habit, basically, or to change a habit, you need to basically replace the routine, but keep the cue and the reward the same. So you just change the routine. So overall, in this challenge, I learned quite a bit. If I had known about habits, as I had mentioned, I would have tried to replace this bad routine of so much video game play with something else. For example, I could have replaced it with reading for at least 1 to 2 hours a day. I did end up doing a lot more reading, but I could have specifically replaced that time with more reading, so I could have stacked the reading times on. And I did improve my willpower a little bit, and this small goal made me feel quite good. And so some of the takeaways I want to give you are, you can also do such a challenge like this, and I think it can be very beneficial for you. If you can't completely stop playing games, at least try to limit it as much as possible. It's similar with social media. I don't think I can ever completely get rid of social media in my life, but I can drastically reduce the amount of time I use social media. Okay, and for me, the hardest part of this challenge was actually the first week. I got the jitters, meaning I got intense cravings to want to play games, but I forced myself not to, and it was a bit difficult. I felt as if I was almost like a drug addict who was addicted to some hard drug. but who couldn't get their drug or drugs. So in that sense, it felt pretty bad. But finally, after the first week, it got a lot easier. And actually, I stopped really desiring the games much at all. So that was quite good. So I guess I realized that I didn't actually need the games. It was very pleasurable, but I could replace those activities with something else more productive. And in addition, I think I could have gone 2 months or longer. I did just 1 month to see if I could do it, but I think I could have gone for a lot longer. And finally, so this was the first challenge I've done in a while, a self-challenge. And I hope that you got something out of this video. I'm Justin, and I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. Please give it a thumbs up. And finally, feel free to leave a comment, and I'd appreciate it if you could share this video. Thank you.